All right, here we go. This video is, before I forget, I made some notes here. I'm stepping on sticks and somebody is cooking out and it smells good. But I already had dinner. Still smells good. This video is mostly for hobby photographers. I can't imagine any professional photographer would watch my channel. But anyway, for anybody that has subscribed and watches my videos, so I appreciate that. Thank you. But this, I had to make notes because I'll get off track and forget. And first and foremost, this is the things I'm going to say are related to people doing photography as a hobby. And before I go on, I'm using my Panasonic G9 Mark II with the Olympus 45mm f1.2 Pro lens, which is equivalent to like a 90mm 2.4 f2.4 on a full frame camera. And I'm shooting at f2, so depth of field similar to around f4 on full frame camera. And we're at 4K, Cinema 4K, 24p. And again, I have this little, was that DJI Mic 2? I think that's what that is. Anyway, so ultimately what I'm getting at here with this video is whether or not you should let people influence you, influencers, in your photography. Should you be really worried about what other people are doing and what they're saying? And, do you really need to know Flash inside and out, for example? Even if you don't really use Flash much, should you be ashamed that you don't know Flash really well, even if you don't use it? But I say that because, in the past, I used to look at photography videos online on YouTube and so on, and read, the photography websites, and always trying to soak in all that information. And I always had this, for some reason, had this feeling that I had to know as much as I possibly could about photography. And again, something like Flash, even though I almost never use Flash, I always kind of felt compelled to learn it and use it for some reason, even though I bought Flashes and sold them over the years and didn't really use it much, but always felt like I had to learn it for some reason. And this video doesn't always also just only apply to video photography. For example, I used to worry about what people thought of me in school and as a young adult. Like one of the guys that my dad worked at a Porsche Audi dealer, he was a mechanic, and I worked there as a teenager cleaning the shop and cars and stuff like that. And one of the mechanics made fun of my nose, like the shape of my nose or something. And I always was kind of self-conscious about that until later on you grow up and you realize, things like that are just kind of stupid, why would you care? But I did. So this isn't maybe only just related to photography. And maybe that kind of gives you a little background of why I think this way and what I'm talking about here. I'm just going to kind of go over this in some random order, the order that I wrote things down. As far as presenting your photos in a website, I don't know if you have a website. I do, obviously, and you can go there and see all my photos. And there's lots and lots of photos. And if I'm doing this a lot, it seems like there's some bugs bugging me. So apologize for that. But my website is just photo galleries and a little bit of text. There's no advertising. There's no links to go buy something or selling presets or, God forbid, a workshop. Who would want to do a workshop with me? Seriously. But, looking at websites, I used to, that's another thing I kind of got stuck on, it was like listening to, I think I listened to other photographers too much, because listening to professional photographers talking about professional photography and how you should do this and how you should do that, and the website subject. So, they for example would say, you need to kind of stick with one genre, and there's cicadas buzzing around me. I don't know if the noise canceling is working very well on this, but I believe it's on. But those little cicadas are buzzing. But they would say, kind of stick to one genre, whether it's like black and white photography or portrait photography or landscape photography. That's your thing, like you couldn't have any variety. And I never really agreed with that, especially if you are a professional and you shoot a variety of subjects and you shoot those really well. Why wouldn't you want to show, everything that you're capable of? But again, I kind of got stuck on that, and that's really just maybe more related to professional photography. It might be good advice, if you want to have a nice clean website and not have too much clutter. But if you're just doing it as a hobby and you do have a website, I'm not just talking about whether you have a Flickr or Instagram. I don't know, so maybe they think you need to apply that to like your Instagram feed or something. You only got to have black and white photos, or you only have to have portrait photos or street photos, that kind of stuff. And, just focus on that. Again, this is just a hobby for me. And at some point I just realized I just need to stop caring about that, not worrying about what other people say. And, that's the thing. I don't really watch many videos anymore, YouTube videos about photography, only unless there's some specific subject I want to learn about for some reason. And of course, when new camera gear comes out, there's just a few channels I'll watch for camera gear reviews, or not necessarily reviews even, but just kind of generally what it's capable of, because you don't really know what a camera is truly capable of for your specific scenario until you get it in your hand, you start using it the way you normally like to use it. So that's the thing I would say. Don't get too fixated on something that someone says on a YouTube video, or some camera review, saying that you can't use it for this or you can't use it for that, or it's the best thing since sliced bread for this particular type of photography. Well, maybe it's not for you. And I would say, focus on the photos that you enjoy making, instead of worrying about, like a workshop, or, do I need this set of presets or that set of presets? Because that's the thing, everybody's trying to sell presets and everybody's trying to sell workshops. And to me, I don't think I would really like a workshop. I think the only way I would like a workshop, if it was to an area that I definitely wanted to go and it wasn't real easy for me to get there by myself or plan it out by myself, but somebody else had already planned it out, and you could just pay a fee and just use it like a vacation. And, and I probably wouldn't necessarily pay too much attention to the photography lessons. That what I tend to focus on more these days is inspiration, and, something going to inspire me to go out and shoot more, because I feel like I tend to get kind of lazy these days. And, especially I don't have a photography related job. So, I have a regular job, and, you work that job, and then, maybe you're a little tired, you don't feel like going out and making photos, and you just don't feel very inspired to make photos or passionate about it. So, I really kind of need to find something that inspires you. Sometimes a certain movie will kind of inspire me to go make photos. I don't know why, but like the Twin Peaks TV show, it's always kind of get me in a photography mood for some reason. A weird show, but for some reason it does. And I do have a Twin Peaks photo gallery, by the way. I was out there in the Seattle area, east of Seattle mostly, in Snoqualmie Falls and all that. Some really nice scenic places out there, the Twin Peaks filming locations. So anyway, do you really need a workshop, or do you really need, everybody else's advice, or do you really just need to learn the basics of photography? And you may have been doing it. I had somebody, one of the reasons I'm making this video is I had somebody comment on one of my videos saying, I've been shooting for 20 years and can't get anything close to what I'm doing. I don't know. First of all, that's a wonderful compliment. And I almost can't believe it. I'm like, well, surely you've got to have something, as because I'm not a professional. I mean, I think I have some really nice photos, but I don't know. I tend not to be one of those people that promotes myself too much, or I don't like to really promote my photos, or like I'm some kind of expert or pro. I just don't like to present myself that way. But if somebody else thinks that of my photos, thinks they're beautiful or professional, or way better than they can get, I'm always kind of taken aback by that, and flattered and appreciative of that. But anyway, so someone made that comment, and I'm thinking, well, first of all, I don't know if somebody like that is watching a lot of videos on YouTube, or you know, always trying to learn to be somebody else, you know, through their photography. And, you know, some people get into these really deep philosophical conversations about photography. And I'm thinking to myself, man, can't it just be about something you really like to shoot, you know, like a subject that you like to shoot and because it's beautiful and it looks great when you make a photo of it? You know, does it always have to be some deep philosophical conversation and, you know, meaning behind everything? And, you know, that's one pet peeve of mine is, you know, these titles people give photos. I probably have the most simplistic and goofy titles in the world on my photos, but, you know, some people get really, you know, they go over the top with the titles and, you know, the meaning of photos. I don't know, maybe it means that to them, but it just, to me, I'm thinking, you know, with all these conversations about photography and what it means and this and that, you know, I keep thinking, you know, why can't it just be simple? Why can't you just go out and make photos of something you enjoy, something you think is beautiful or something you think is interesting, and you know, you get some kind of enjoyment out of that, you know, some satisfaction. I don't know why it always has to be so deep and, you know, deep thoughts. There was some Saturday Night Live, wasn't there? Saturday Night Live skit on deep thoughts with, you know, whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was. Kind of talked about workshops. And as far as photography goes, okay, one little note I here made for myself is, you know, I don't want my photography to feel like it's for someone else, which is one of the reasons I don't try to make a living or earn, you know, a good deal of money on the side from photography. I probably could, you know, if I started really hitting up friends and family, you know, hey, do you know somebody that needs, you know, senior portraits or whatever kind of portraits? It seemed like people photo or even maybe pet photos would be some, you know, pretty decent money. And, you know, you would obviously probably be undercutting real professionals because you'd probably, as a hobby photographer or an amateur, you'd be wanting to charge a price that, you know, just wasn't, you know, what the professional would charge, you know, maybe half or 3/4 or whatever. But even at that, I really don't have much interest in that. First of all, I'm not desperate for the money, but I just don't. I want to go out and shoot photos when I want to go out and shoot photos. That's it. And if I don't feel like making photos that day, I won't. The camera will sit in the dresser drawer or whatever. It's not a dresser. It's a little desk or whatever. Anyway, you know, I want to go make photos when I want to make photos and make photos of what I want to make photos of. It could be anything. It could be a car, it could be a tree, a leaf, you know, an insect, waterfall, anything, you know, a rusty bolt. But I don't want to feel like that it's for somebody else and that I have to take everybody's advice all the time and, you know, well, you really need to be doing it this way or that way, you know. And again, this is all related to you, and if you're feeling this way, you know, don't feel like you have to make photos for somebody else. I think you're probably going to make better photos if you're passionate about something, you're really interested in it, and you know, that's it for me. You know, again, like that goofy TV show Twin Peaks, for example. You know, I really enjoyed the characters. I'm talking about the original series, season 1 and 2, way back in '91 and '92 or whenever that was. I didn't discover this show until sometime in the like 2010s or so. I never really think I'd heard of the show, but I was in the army over in Germany when this show was going on, so I didn't see it when it first came out. So I ended up watching it on Amazon. But there's something about that show, some of the scenes, and it's just kind of an artistic, you know, feel to it. Some of the scenery in there, and you know, things like that. You know, go out and start shooting photos of. Well, when I was out there in the Seattle area for making the photos of the filming locations when I had some extra time on a work trip. It was like a weekend. So, but yeah, you know, just go out and find something that you enjoy shooting. And, you know, I think you're going to make a lot better photos if you're passionate about it, or, you know, you're really interested in something rather than just trying to, you know, fulfill a need of somebody else's. You know, there's somebody on Instagram or somewhere else out on social media somewhere posting a lot of this photo and that photo, and everybody's commenting on it, and you feel like you have to do the same thing. You can if you want to, but I mean, my thing is probably better not to to do that. You know, just stick with what's good for you, and I think you'll naturally find your own way. So I already talked about workshops and presets and everybody trying to sell you all that stuff. And again, I'm not trying to deny anybody their their source of income. It may be helpful to some people. Some people might use presets as a starting point. I use some of the built-in presets in Adobe Lightroom as a starting point sometime. I always just start with the standard profile, the camera matching profile in Adobe Lightroom, kind of like the standard profile, and Nikon calls it standard. I think Olympus or Panasonic also calls it standard, but they'll have like a portrait profile and a landscape profile. I usually just start with either. On Panasonic, I usually start with a portrait because it's not super contrasty and adds a little bit of warmth to it, and then just kind of start from there. Or the Nikon, I'll use the standard, which is a pretty good starting point, and then just kind of edit from there, whether I want to just tweak it the way it is, or I might, again, apply one of those presets that comes in Adobe Lightroom as a starting point. I almost never just plop the preset on there and then you're done. Most of the time, I just don't like it that way. But I don't know. You might like to use presets as a starting point, and sometimes these tutorials, videos, workshops. Again, maybe that's useful for you, and maybe if you want to go in a workshop just for the camaraderie and being around other fellow photographers, maybe that's some inspiration also. Nothing wrong with that. It just, again, for me, I probably wouldn't like it, and I kind of have this thing about I don't want people telling me what I need and what I need to be liking and what I need to do to be a good photographer, this and that. I just photography for me is just kind of a personal thing, and again, it's not for anybody else but me. And I think I usually end up making some pretty good photos, which then other people end up enjoying more because ends up being a better photo if I'm interested in feeling they're inspired to do something, photography related. So I think it all kind of has a natural flow and works right if you do it that way rather than feeling forced and that you have to do it for somebody else and all that. So let's see, I've already talked about that. And I think that's pretty much it for all my little notes I had written down there. And I don't know how long this has gone on, but maybe 20 minutes or so. But anyway, hopefully this is somewhat useful for you. Again, I kind of started this thinking about this as several people making comments on my photos, and some people really think that that I'm some really great photographer. And again, if you think that, I really appreciate it. But it's strange that even though I do photography really often and have a website dedicated to it and all that, I just somehow still don't really think of myself as a photographer. I just think of it as something I enjoy doing, and I'm not really sure. I don't know. I guess it's a mental thing. Everybody's different like that, But yeah, for the people that are just kind of novices or amateurs and hobby photographers like me, and if you've made a really nice comment, again, I really appreciate that, and thanks for the people that subscribe. And definitely not making a lot of money off this. I think it takes, depending on what I post, obviously some things are more, get more views than others, but it might take 3-4 months or so just to get like $100 worth of advertising revenue off of my YouTube channel. So, it's just kind of more of a, when I get one of those emails from Google that there's a payment coming, it's just more of a little pleasant surprise. Like, oh, I put that in my camera fund. So that's all it is for me. It's not a job. And again, I could try to earn money from it, but I did try to do, before I go too far off in the tangent about that, I did try stock photography once, and iStockphoto.com, and then they got bought by Getty and all that. But I tried to do that a little bit. I thought that might be an easy way for me to where I can just kind of shoot what I want and upload those photos, and if they sell, they sell. If they don't, they don't. But even then, it still didn't have many sales of that. And I think type places like that for stock photography, I think they kind of thrive mostly on like people photos, and I didn't really do that. But yeah, even that, it just kind of felt like a chore to me and something I really didn't want to do. So I just kind of gave that up, and I just don't do anything now. My website only costs like $150 a year. It's not some big fancy thing, and that it's just a template basically that SmugMug has. The website that they cater to photographers. Who was that other Squarespace? All these other places that are advertising. Like websites that are easy to build. You just click here and use this template or whatever and upload your photos. And I think a place like SmugMug is a lot easier a lot better for photographers and easier to manage, and it's pretty simple. I mean, I do it. So, and again, it's only like $150 a year for like the plan, just below the plan that allows you to sell photos. I don't sell anything to the public. I can buy photos myself, prints of my photos through my website, get some really nice prints. But if you want to use SmugMug to sell photos, there's another plan that's a little bit more expensive, like $200 a year or something. It's not crazy. It's just really very affordable, and it's like unlimited photos. And video, they kind of stink on video. I admit that. I think they have unless they've changed it, there was like a time limit, like the length of the video, and there might even be some kind of a limit on the file size, but it's just, if you want to use it for video, in my opinion, unless there's some plan that I don't have that doesn't allow what I'm talking about, like the higher end, longer videos like YouTube and all that. Yeah, it's just not really a thing for video. Great for photos though, and you can customize those templates to kind of do whatever you want, and it looks really nice. But all right, well, that's what I'm going to stop with, and I'm going to walk over like I do, very unprofessionally, and just hit the record button here and stop it. So thanks for stopping by.